think of all the things we're trying to do to help education outcomes in our country and how much they cost. Taking cell phones out of classrooms doesn't cost you anything and has proven returns.
Hello and welcome to the ALEC 52nd Annual Meeting in Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm Lars Daleside, and with me right now is Iowa State Senator Kara Warme.
Thanks for having me, Lars.
Appreciate it. Love having you come by. And this is your second ALEC annual meeting.
That's right.
Oh, so you were with us last year in Colorado, or?
I came to DC last winter after I was elected to the Iowa Senate.
Just elected to the Iowa Senate. Well, then of course,
right.
then we can't expect you to be coming here when you're not allowed.
Yeah.
So you just ran for the Iowa Senate. What was the inspiration to run?
You know, it was really twofold. My senator was retiring. He had come in when Republicans took over the majority in the Iowa Senate. They had gotten a lot of great work done, and he had leaned into Health and Human Services. He was chairing that committee and stepping away. It's a passion of mine. I wanted to make sure we continued to have advocates for healthy populations and for families in the Iowa Senate.
Well, what were you doing at the time? I mean, what was the job at home before you stepped into the legislature?
The first job at home is mom. Have two girls, 13 and 15
Oh,
now.
they're at those great ages.
Great in parades, great on the doors, getting through the election process. My background is in engineering and business.
Fantastic.
But after COVID, I had pivoted. I was substitute teaching and then started working at a behavioral health nonprofit. And so that really opened my eyes to how much public policy impacts what we're doing in the healthcare space and the mental health needs that are out there for kids.
You know, it's very interesting as I've been talking to the different legislators from across the country about what their inspiration is, their one little thing. I spoke to a gentleman who was talking about the property taxes with his parents' home, and another one had a healthcare type issue like you were talking about that they were dealing with a friend of theirs. And so it's interesting to see that there is the inspiration, and there are some of us that will sit back and like, oh, well, that's just the way things goes. And then there are those of you who step up and say, I think I can figure out a way to fix this.
I think it's really a privilege to have the opportunity to serve. Iowa has a citizen legislature where we bring forward people with all different types of experience, and we work together to preserve Iowa for future generations.
Oh, and it's beautiful out there. Gotta love the times that you get to go out and visit. So your first year, your first stint in the state Senate, what was the focus? What were we looking at?
Yeah, so I would say the most important thing that we did is get cell phones out of schools. So you've heard I've got teenage girls who like to tell me they were the last girls at their schools without phones. But really, the data is so clear. There's a lot of information out there, books like Anxious Generation that chronicle the negative impact on young people with developing brains from overuse of smartphones and social media. And that impacts us in education outcomes, mental health, and behavior in our schools. And so it is so important that kids are able to focus in their time in the school. And as I think about why that would matter to us as we think about fiscal responsibility and things that we talk about here at ALEC, you know, in Iowa's state budget, and I think most state budgets, education is the number one line item, right? Almost half of our $9 billion budget in Iowa. And so taxpayers deserve a return on their investment. When I was substitute teaching, kids were actively watching movies in class. I mean, and we've seen the schools that have adopted the policies proactively, amazing statistics in terms of improvements in behavior, educational outcomes, and so the return on investment is there. We want those dollars that were spent preparing our future workforce and not wasted on addiction to phones.
Well, I can only begin to imagine. I mean, I come from the dinosaur age where, you know, maybe I would have snuck in a Walkman and tried to listen to that. Or you're reading a magazine or a book, God forbid, that didn't have anything to do with class. But when you're able to pick up the phone, like I said, I'm listening or watching my podcast, I'm watching movies, I'm watching TV. I would be drowning right now in school. So I would think that especially you might have seen a little bit of that with your kids and definitely with their friends and all. I can't see that as being anything but a plus.
Right.
I know, I'm sure I've heard some pushback here and there. It's like, well, what if I have to get hold of my kid? What if I have to reach out and there's a family emergency or something?
Yeah. And I think the logical thing is to have some exceptions that make sense. And the Iowa bill has that. I believe the ALEC model policy has that. Of course, we have medical devices now that work through apps on phones. We have emergencies, but you can also think back to when there was an emergency and mom would call the office, right? And they'd walk on down to the classroom, and that
Simple
works
enough.
just fine. So we can solve some of these problems, right? But yeah, you can build those exceptions in, but it has been neat to see where I think it's a gift we can give to our kids. Again, students speaking up in support where they've seen the benefit. You hear voices again in the lunchroom. People get a chance to learn to speak and look at each other in the face. I think it's important. And so even as we think at ALEC about freedom and trusting parents, we also have chosen to no longer have vending machines for cigarettes in our country, right? Like we realize things that maybe we want to protect kids from, that we owe it to them. And so this is something we can do to invest in their future that, by the way, doesn't cost anything, right? And so
that's a huge benefit as
enacting
well.
these policies, you think of all the things we're trying to do to help education outcomes in our country and how much they cost. Taking cell phones out of classrooms doesn't cost you anything and has proven returns.
Definitely. It's so funny, though. You're talking about the old days, and I'm going back to how things were for me in elementary and high school, and especially I had the interns in the other day, and I was telling them how we had our smoking court. And it's like, what? You were allowed? It's like, they had the place, the teachers and the students, a much different world. But, speaking of the different world, Iowa's not where you started.
It's not.
You started off in California.
I did.
And you found some horrible man that dragged you out from the beaches into the cornfields of Iowa.
Yeah, so I was born in San Diego. My dad was a naval aviator.
Oh, wow.
My parents actually met at the Officers Club at Miramar while my dad was a pilot in Top Gun, just like the movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they met at that same bar where Kelly McGillis and Tom Cruise met in the movie. My dad likes to say that the real Top Gun had a lot more studying and a lot less volleyball, but also really talented pilots. So he was a fighter pilot. I was born there in San Diego in a great military community. It was a very conservative community when I was first growing up.
Sure.
Things have changed a lot in California since then. And so when I was at Stanford studying engineering, and I met a farm kid from Iowa who'd come out to Stanford for medical school, and he told me Ames, Iowa was just like San Diego. And I was in love enough to believe him and follow him. And 20 years later, we've really enjoyed raising our family in Iowa.
It's like, honey, I'm still waiting for the beach.
Right. If you catch the soybeans just right as the wind flows, blur your eyes a little, maybe add an adult beverage, you can see the ocean there if you look at it just right.
Listen, I would tell him, you've had 20 years and plenty of shovels. You could have been making a little something in the backyard overall. Well, that must have been an interesting jump overall, though, because you said you were doing a little bit of substitute teaching before you ran for office. But gosh, running for office that first time, that's got to be a little bit frightening, a little bit of a chill. And you said you got the little ones that are out there knocking doors and walking to parades for you. So it was a complete family affair trying to push things through? It was.
And when you hear about Iowa Nice, that's for real, right? Of course, there's always a few instances that you can just brush off and move on. But in general, Iowa is very engaged in the political process, right? Having our first in the nation caucuses, having this expectation that you're going to meet federal candidates from the top of the ticket and everybody there. And so people do answer the door and want to talk to you. They expect to meet you. And with my business experience has been about, listening and solving problems. And so everything doesn't have to be overly partisan. I think Iowa is historically a purple state, and we've swung really strongly trifecta supermajority red by listening to people and what impacts their day-to-day life. And so we've brought, our income tax was the highest rate was up at 9%. Now we have a flat 3.8.
Boom.
We're tackling property tax reform. We're listening and doing the things that people are looking for.
You got the education freedom.
We have education freedom. We really are focusing on preserving the values that make Iowa what it is in terms of faith, family, hard work, and agriculture is at the heart of what we do.
Oh, well, that I have heard and know friends and family out there and they've been experiencing that, hear the stories all the time. So you're done with your first session?
Right.
What are we looking for in 26?
So it'll be interesting to see. It was a very contentious session in some ways, even with divisions, within Republicans or between House and Senate. That doesn't usually happen, right, Lars? That was just unique.
Yeah,
to this.
politicians usually get along fantastically.
Yeah. So there are some relationships to repair and need to get people to unite and work together as we head into what will be a really, tough midterm election year nationwide. And so we're going to have to work together. Our fabulous Iowa governor has announced she's not running again, and that started a musical chairs motion of who's running for that seat, and therefore what does that open up. And so there's been a lot of focus on that, and that also will create opportunities for new leaders to step up in legislature where spots open. And so that's something I'm watching closely and just ready to step in and help however I can.
Yeah, and on the legislative agenda?
Property tax for us will continue to be a focus.
Love hearing. There's been about a dozen or so of you guys that have sat down here and told me property tax. I'm like, I love it. Let's
absolutely
take a bite out of it.
Yep. So that'll be a big focus for us for sure.
Great. Well, Senator Warme, Iowa State Senate, appreciate you taking the time, stopping by, telling us a little bit about your first session, what's going on in Iowa, and we'll be back with more from the ALEC annual meeting in Indianapolis.